In this video, we're going to look at how to do concentration calculations of chemicals for your chemistry exam. Now, the first thing to know is you need to learn this equation. This equation, concentration is mass divided by volume, is really important. You won't be able to do this without learning that off by heart. So make a flashcard, do something, memorize that equation. Now we'll go through a couple of examples, and I've picked a couple of different examples to show you the different things they can do. So in this question, I'm told that 100 centimeters cubed of copper sulfate solution contains 1.8 grams of copper sulfate. Calculate the mass of copper sulfate in 25 centimeters cubed. So I've been given a volume, I've been given a mass, I'm asked to find a mass, and I've been given another volume. What they've done is they've given me enough information to work out the concentration, then changed the volume and asked me to find a new mass. Now, some of you might have spotted a quick way to do this question, but I'm going to do the long way first. So we know concentration is mass divided by volume. Write out your equation. Then put the numbers in that you know. So I know that 1.8 grams in a volume of 100. So I know, typing that into my calculator, that the concentration is 0.018. But then in the question, they changed the situation. They now want to know what's the mass in 25, not 100. So I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do concentration is mass divided by volume. I know the concentration because I just worked it out. It's 0.018 equals mass divided by the new volume of 25. Now I've put the numbers into my equation. Now I'm willing to rearrange it. I've got mass divided by 25. So to get mass on its own, I need to times 25. So I'll go up here. So I need to do 0.018 times 25. And that gets me 0.45. So that's the mass in 25 centimeters cubed. Now, for those of you with a keen maths brain, will notice there was another way to do this one. If you look, if there's 1.8 grams in 100 centimeters cubed, 25 centimeters cubed is a quarter of that. They have quartered the volume. If they've quartered the volume, you can just quarter the mass. So a quick way of doing it was 1.8 divided by 4. And that will also get you 0.45. So if you're mathsy, you'll have spotted that straight away. Quick way of doing it. If you're not so mathsy, there is a way to do it relying on the equation. Right, let's look at another one. Now in this one, we're going to have to watch out for units, and this is a very common thing. So 1 gram of copper sulfate is dissolved in water to make 25 centimeters cubed of copper sulfate solution. Calculate the concentration in grams per decimeter cubed. So we're given a mass, we're given a volume, we're asked for concentration. So concentration is mass divided by volume. Always write out your equation first. Then put your numbers in. The mass is 1. The volume, 25, but it's 25 centimeters cubed when they've told me they want decimeters cubed. Now, for those of you who aren't sure what decimeters are, you know what a meter is, you know what a centimeter is, you know what a millimeter is. I'm just getting smaller, aren't I? A centimeter is 100 times smaller than a meter. A millimeter is 1,000 times smaller than a millimeter. Decimeter goes in the middle. It's 10 times smaller. So if I wanted to turn, say, meters into decimeters, I'd times by 10. If I wanted to turn decimeters into centimeters, I'd times by 10. If I wanted to turn centimeters into millimeters, I'd times by 10. If I wanted to go the other way, I would divide by 10. Now, I do want to go the other way. I want to go from centimeters cubed to decimeters cubed. So I want to go from centimeters to decimeters. So I'm going to divide by 10. But I want to do it cubed. So I cube it. So to change my 25 centimeters cubed into decimeters cubed, I divide by 10 cubed. So divided by 10 cubed, and that's all on the bottom. So I'm going to have to put it in brackets when I type it into my calculator. So, or I could just do it separately. So that becomes 1 divided by 0.025. Then I type that into my calculator and I get 40. So my answer is 40. So the big part of that question was changing units. Now that's a very common change. So if this didn't make sense, speak to your teacher, but just remember to turn centimeters cubed into decimeters cubed. We divide by 10 cubed. That's the change. That's the conversion. Right, this is another one we're required to do the same thing. So, a solution of hydrochloric acid contains 3.2 grams of hydrogen chloride in 50 centimeters cubed. Calculate the concentration of hydrogen chloride in grams per decimeter cubed. So this is exactly the same as the previous question. I write my equation. Concentration is mass divided by volume. I can put my mass straight in because it wants it in grams and it is in grams. My volume I need to change. So 50 centimeters cubed turned into decimeters cubed. So remember, centimeters turned into decimeters. I divide by 10. Centimeters cubed to decimeters cubed, I divide by 10 cubed. So I'm going to do on the bottom 50 divided by 10 cubed. In brackets, if I want to type it into my calculator all in one go. I'm going to do it separately though. So 3.2 divided by 0.005. I did just type that in my calculator. Then I can type 3.2 divided by 0.005 into my calculator and I get... Oh, I've added an extra 0 there. Apologies. Sorry, just look back at my calculator. 0.05 even. So 3.2 divided by 0.05, 64. So my answer is 64. So to do that question, I had to remember the equation. I had to convert units and I had to do the calculation. So it's 1 mark for putting the correct numbers into a correct equation, even if I forget to convert units. So I've got 1 mark for that step. I've got 1 mark for converting the units and 1 mark for calculating out the answer. Now, finally, question 4. Now, this one will be a higher tier only question because it involves moles. So moles only come up on higher tier. Now, a lot of students don't like moles, but they're really simple. So we're asked, the student dissolved 0.025 moles of nickel sulfate in water to make 5 centimeters cubed of nickel sulfate solution. Calculate the concentration of the nickel sulfate solution in grams per decimeters cubed. Now we've got several steps to do here, and remember, every step will get us credit, even if we don't finish the question. I'm asked to work out concentration, so I write down my equation, mass over volume. Now this time, because we've practiced it loads, I'm going to do the volume first. So volume, we've got to change centimeters cubed into decimeters cubed. We know to change centimeters into decimeters, we divide by 10. So we know to change centimeters cubed to decimeters cubed, we divide by 10 cubed. So I'm going to do 5 divided by 10 cubed. So just doing the bottom half of my equation, 5 divided by 10 cubed, 0.005 according to my calculator. I've got marks already because I've worked out the volume, but now I have to deal with the mass. I'm given moles, I want grams. So this isn't just a divide by 1,000 or anything like that. Now, for anyone who doesn't like moles, it's just a number. If I told you I had 200 of something, you would know 100 is just a number. It's just 2 lots of 100. So it's 200. Moles is exactly the same. Moles is just a number. It's a more complicated number than that, but it is just a number. So it's not something to be afraid of. But one thing I know is if they've given me the relative formula mass, I'm going to need it. Now, the relative formula mass is 1 mole, but in grams. So if 155 grams is 1 mole, but I only want 0.0025 moles, it's going to be a lot less than this. So I'm going to do 0.0025 times 155. So if I actually work that out, type it into my calculator, I get 0.3875. If I type both of those into my calculator, I get 77.5. So my answer is 77.5. Now I explained that moles bit quite quickly, but just to go over it again, the mass number, so this that I'm given, the relative formula mass, so the relative formula mass is the mass of 1 mole. So they may as well have said the mass of 1 mole is 155 grams. So what's that many moles? Now, just because it's an awkward number doesn't make it more difficult. If they said I had 2 moles and I said that was the mass of 1, you would all know to double it. You'd all know to times it by 2. Just because it's an awkward number doesn't mean the method I use changes. I would still just times it by that number. So I hope that helps.